Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews with connections in mind, and welcome back to my reaction series to each and every episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. Now, if you're just joining this series midstream, this is just my short-form reaction series where I give my thoughts to each and every episode as soon as they come out, as well as some analysis on certain plot developments and character arcs that seem familiar and where you may have seen them before. Now, with all that being said, and without further ado, let's get into Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 10, entitled The Red Angel. As the title suggests, this is when we finally get some answers on what exactly the Red Angel is, who the Red Angel is that we've been pursuing all season long, as well as what the purpose of the Red Angel is, and whether, and as it's determined, whether or not the Red Angel is a time traveler. Is determined that it is in fact determined that this time traveler, Red Angel, has a specific connection to Burnham. In fact, it is postulated through most of the episode that is in fact a future version of Michael Burnham, and it is determined and is hatched a plan wherein the crew of Discovery and Section 31 vie to trap the Red Angel in this their timeline so that they can get some answers from it and hopefully prevent the artificial intelligence from the future from destroying all sentient life within the galaxy. I thought this episode did a good job of leading us down the rabbit hole of the Red Angel, and I had some very good character moments, specifically with the previous episode between Michael Burnham and Spock. Her growth as a character and her development with her adopted brother is something that has been sorely lacking up until now and up until the last couple episodes, and I'm glad to see that we are continuing to develop that as it goes forward. And we got some vital backstory into Burnham's past, specifically how her parents died, supposedly, that they were in fact working for Section 31, and that gave us some interesting backstory on Michael Burnham. And however, I love the fact that even though I believe it was Captain Leland, I believe was his name, from Section 31, the fact that he tells the story to Michael, and Section 31 operatives are renowned for keeping secrets, we can be sure that what he told Michael is not necessarily the entire truth, and it may well be reframed in later episodes. The fact that they've established that as a consistent pattern gives this episode a tantalizing glimpse as to what may come ahead, which is something I really appreciated. I like that they're forging ahead with the interpersonal relationship between Hugh and Paul Stamets, that how they're trying to reconcile their relationship as the fact that they can't return to the way things were, and that something has definitely changed, and that they have to roll with the punches as they go, and that may end up meaning that they go their separate ways. That's interesting and in development, and I'll be curious to see how they proceed with that going forward. As I said in my reaction to last week's episode, Project Daedalus, I thought that they did not establish Ariam's character as much as they really should have in order to make that death scene really potent. So the fact that this, it makes sense in universe, but the fact that this episode starts off with a funeral scene for Commander Ariam, and it goes on for a not insignificant period of portion of the episode, makes me think that maybe the writers thought that it was a much bigger deal on the audience than it may have been. I don't know. That's just me. While what they said at the funeral was beautiful and well said, I think that they were trying, at least, and especially how they shot the funeral scene was trying to evoke Spock's death in Wrath of Khan. I just didn't think that packed the same punch, and I thought that was not as effective as I think maybe the makers of the show intended it to be. That was probably my only negative of this episode. Overall, I thought it was a very well constructed episode. And however, there was one logical gap that I would like to address. The fact that if the crew of Discovery and Section 31 believed that Michael Burnham was the Red Angel, they suddenly decide to make it so that Michael Burnham is then informed of the entire plan, the entire trap, and yet then she's still allowed to go on with it. I mean, it makes, temporal mechanics, obviously, time loops, whatever, but if you know that you're in the future are going to have more information than you are, shouldn't it make more sense to keep your past self in the dark as much as possible in order to trap the future self? That just didn't seem to click with me, and I feel like the writers kind of fudged the logic a little bit to try to make it work. Obviously, it is revealed that the Red Angel is in fact Michael Burnham's mother, but if that was the case, then even though that still doesn't negate the fact that the Discovery crew, they were planning this whole plan with Michael Burnham planning most of this trap with the knowledge that you're trapping her future self with that knowledge in tow. So I don't know how they were expecting this to work in the first place, but that didn't seem to make as much sense to me. It all worked out in the end, and it didn't bother me too much watching the episode, but that's one where if you think too hard, you might not find a good answer for all these questions that it raises. So those are my main negatives of this film. But overall, I thought it was a very enjoyable episode, and the fact that we now have the reveal that the Red Angel is in fact Michael Burnham's mother, that opens the door for some interesting developments as the season goes on. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Some analysis on where you may have seen this before. The fact of characters from the future coming to the past to fix past mistakes or interacting with past selves is nothing unusual to Star Trek. There's a great episode of Star Trek Voyager from the 5th season, I believe entitled Relativity, that deals with something similar, in which 709 and Captain Janeway have to go back into portions of the past in order to fix the past in order to save the future, sort of thing. Also, from a standpoint of temporal causality and having to save events in a certain order so that the future can unfold as it's supposed to, I thought that was actually this concept, as displayed in this episode, is reflected very beautifully in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban with the whole time turner and how they shot that whole sequence with Harry and Hermione going back in time to discover that everything that happened to them the first time around was in fact them in the future going back into the past. It's something similar happening with the Red Angel in this instance. So that's a fun little thing. And of course, the revelation from Michael Burnham that her parents weren't killed randomly in a Klingon attack, but in fact, there was a human person behind their deaths, and it was someone that she's been working with, or at least is acquainted with throughout this whole time. That reminded me a lot of how Tony Stark found out about the circumstances behind his parents' death in Captain America: Civil War, and the fact that he knew about Bucky Barnes, and then he attacks him because of that, and all these circumstances behind that. So a fun little parallel on that regard. So those are my main points of analysis on this episode. But what did you think of this week's episode? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree, disagree? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments down below. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my reaction to next week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, as well as my reactions to every episode of Season 2 of The Orville. The latest episode is posted on my channel now. as well as I said in the beginning, I do movie reviews on my channel. I posted my most recent review is for Captain Marvel, which is on my channel, and also be sure to look for my next movie review, which is for the live-action remake of Dumbo, which comes out the 29th of March this year. So be sure to look for those. And like I said, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, there is nothing new under the sun. And yes, you have seen it before.